The Vought F7U Cutlass carrier-based jet fighter was one of the most unusual designs ever produced for the US Navy. Created as Vought's entry into a 1945 day fighter design competition, it was partially based on aerodynamic data from German companies responsible for World War II's Nazi aircraft. Vought designers denied the German link at the time. When the revolutionary Cutlass first came into the US Navy service in April 1954, the swept-wing jet fighter represented a leap into the future. It was also the perfect candidate to carry the fighter-bomber torch into the Cold War era. But several technical and handling problems plagued it from the beginning, and over 1/4 of built jets were destroyed in several accidents. One of those problems? It didn't have a tail. Drawing inspiration from the Germans. At the dawn of the jet age, a period in aviation history that brought some of the best turbine-powered aircraft to the forefront, the Navy issued a request for proposal for a carrier-based fighter capable of operating at 40,000 feet and reaching Mach 1 speed. Before the request was made in June of 1945, aviation company Vought had already begun working on such a project. Their reputation preceded them, as they were the first company to develop a carrier-capable aircraft. They also had a trick up their sleeve. His name was Waldemar Voigt. Voigt was a former senior designer for Messerschmitt AG, the German aircraft manufacturing company responsible for many of the Nazi fighter aircraft that terrorized the Pacific and European theaters during World War II. In the 1940s, the German aircraft industry had built up an impressive technical background of swept-wing design aircraft. At Messerschmitt AG, Voigt oversaw several experimental aircraft projects for the Luftwaffe, the German aerial warfare branch. He also developed the Messerschmitt P1110 and P1112 projects involving designs for a single-seat high-altitude interceptor and a fighter powered by turbojet technology. After the war ended, Voigt moved to America to work with Vought. He supervised the development of new aircraft inspired by his knowledge of German swept-wing designs. Vought chose Rex Beazle to be the lead designer on the new project. Beazle was responsible for inventing the TS-1, the Navy's first aircraft built specifically for carrier operations, and the famed F4U Corsair. This project would become his last before his retirement. The result was the Vought F7U Cutlass. The jet had swept wings and twin wing-mounted tail fins on either side of a short fuselage, with a forward-placed cockpit to provide better visibility during carrier landings. From a technical standpoint, it had no tail. The Cutlass had an avant-garde nose landing gear strut that lifted the pilot's seat 14 feet into the air. Tailerons for pitch and roll control were installed, and its controls were powered by hydraulics. The system provided artificial feedback, so the pilot could feel aerodynamic forces acting on the plane. The jet was capable of loading two 2,000-pound bombs on its inner pylons. It could also carry 4 AAM-N2 Sparrow air-to-air missiles and was fortified with 4 20mm cannons. When the Navy announced the request for proposal's winner, the prototype's number changed from V346 to Vought F7U. The Cutlass logged its maiden flight on September 29, 1948. It was piloted by Vought's chief test pilot, J. Robert Baker. The jet took off from Naval Air Station Patuxent River in Maryland, reaching a maximum speed of 625 miles per hour. Further test flights went exceedingly well. When the tests proved that further prototypes of the F7U would meet all Navy requirements, an order for 14 models was placed. Officials were convinced that the Vought F7U Cutlass could be a viable threat in air-to-air combat. A short-lived operational history. As soon as production on the Cutlass began, the Navy requested that it needed more powerful engines. Because of development problems with its power plant, the jet's second prototype never saw the light of day. After adjustments, the third model became the definitive production version. Equipped with Westinghouse J46WE-8B turbojets, 288 jets were built and sent to 13 US Navy squadrons. The Cutlass was touted as highly versatile in technical functionality, but its performance underwhelmed from the beginning. Its turbojet lacked enough engine thrust, so its carrier takeoff and landing yielded disastrous results. The jet was also known to flame out on rainy days, another cause of concern. Fighter Squadron 81 was the first fleet to receive Cutlass models in April 1954. Strike Fighter Squadrons 81, 83, 116, 124, 151, and 212 also made deployments with the jet, but most of the models were beached ashore due to operating difficulties. Accidents quickly began to pile up. The Cutlass began receiving damning criticism and given nicknames such as Widowmaker, Ensign Eliminator, or Gutless Cutlass. Its most shocking incident happened to be caught on camera. On July 14, 1955, Fighter Squadron 124, aboard carrier USS Hancock, was performing flight operations with several models in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. When pilot Lieutenant Commander J. Alkire approached the carrier's deck, he could not gain enough thrust to clear the round down at the end of the flight deck landing area. The F-7U struck the side of the ramp, and as it slid left of the center lane, it burst into a ball of flames. Rumors circulated about several deck crew members' casualties, but the ship's logs only mentioned Commander Alkire. After another similar accident took the life of pilot Lieutenant George Millard, in which his nose gear and thrust malfunctioned, triggering his ejection seat, the USS Hancock's captain ordered every Cutlass to be taken off the ship. A few incidents too many. The elite Navy Flight Demonstration Squadron, the Blue Angels, flew 2 F7U Cutlass jets as part of a side demonstration during the 1953 season. Both pilots and ground crews found the aircraft difficult to manage. Some of the issues the Blue Angels employees reported were landing gear and hydraulic system failures and engine fires while airborne. During the season's opening appearance, pilot Lieutenant Edward Whitey Freightner, formerly employed as the F7U program manager, lost all hydraulic systems during a full afterburner takeoff and steep climb. Freightner tried to reach enough altitude for a safe ejection, and the jet's backup system eventually turned on. While making the emergency landing, he cut through trees on the end of the runway, which caused the left engine to burst into flames. With hydraulic fluid dripping from the side, Freightner made a hard turn and got the plane back on track. The crowd went wild. Before the Blue Angels called, Freightner knew that the Cutlass was trouble. As he told Air and Space magazine in 2012, quote, "We determined right off the bat that the Cutlass wasn't the answer. But the Navy wanted to get some time on it. I actually took it aboard ship and made 14 landings before the airplane broke in half right behind the cockpit during a landing." In a strange turn of events, a Vought F7U Cutlass was the first aircraft to land on a new runway at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. While traveling to a show at Glenview Air Station in Chicago, Blue Angels pilot Lieutenant Hardin McKnight was flying a Cutlass when he experienced an engine flameout. Thankfully, Lieutenant Freightner was his co-pilot, and he was no stranger to Cutlass difficulties. Forced to make an emergency landing at the nearest runway, Freightner was redirected to Chicago's former Orchard Air Park, recently expanded and renamed O'Hare Airport. The runway had just been finalized and was temporarily covered in peach baskets in a makeshift solution to prevent aircraft from landing. Freightner and McKnight were instructed to ignore the baskets and land on top of them. Following these incidents with the Blue Angels, the 2 Cutlass jets were deemed unsuitable for demonstration flying. When asked about the insistence of showcasing the aircraft, Freightner recalled, quote, "There were congressmen, senators, and we had a couple of pretty senior officers who wanted their airplane to be the Blue Angels airplane." The aircraft were flown to the Naval Air Station in Tennessee, where they became maintenance instructional airframes for the Naval Technical Training Center. The end of the program. Of all the designs that came out of the jet age, the F7U appeared to hold the greatest potential for supersonic flight. Its swept-back wings and unusual look represented a leap into the future for jet-powered aircraft. But despite its twin engines and hydraulic system, the F7U lacked enough thrust and was too bulky to break the sound barrier. While flying at 30,000 feet, the Cutlass only reached Mach 0.98 and 0.99 with its afterburners. It was expected that with the afterburners on and at a power dive position, the jet could match the speed of sound, but it was a moot point. As tensions rose during the Cold War in the early 1950s, every new American aircraft design was expected to accommodate novel nuclear weaponry. New carrier-based attack planes were now the primary candidates to add this capability. In 1957, Vought analyzed all major Cutlass incidents. There had been 78 reported accidents, accumulating 55,000 flight hours. With approximately a quarter of the models lost in these mishaps, the Vought F7U Cutlass held the highest accident rate of all Navy swept-wing fighter aircraft. This appalling safety record was mostly the result of advanced design techniques created to apply new aerodynamic principles with insufficiently reliable engines. On paper, the futuristic-looking Cutlass appeared to have all the necessary traits to make it the ideal fighter for the Cold War era. But with its poor carrier takeoff and landing performances and the many accidents in which it was involved, there was no point in continuing the program. The Vought F7U Cutlass was retired from service in March 1959 and was replaced by a far more capable Vought fighter, the F9F-8 Cougar, which went on to serve in the Navy for almost 20 years.